Hi guys, this is the part 2 of our special episode of the podcast from inside the Welsh Parliament. We had MSs from across the political spectrum join us, and if you want to go and listen to the previous one before this one, you can do. If not, settle in and let's enjoy some politics chat. We've got another happy Plaid Cymru MS, Lindsey Whittle, the latest member of the Senedd, elected in the by-election in Caerphilly back in October. How many attempts had there been on you being a member of the Welsh Parliament before that by-election?
Well, this is where the media, with respect, got it slightly wrong, because I had 10 attempts at Westminster.
Oh,
right. So, I've stood in every Senedd election,
Okay.
but was successful in 2011 when I represented the South Wales East region, which included the old Gwent, if you like, plus the Caerphilly constituency and Merthyr Tydfil. But the standing 10 times, I don't know how the media didn't research it so well, but hey, I wasn't going to stop it. It was a wonderful bandwagon.
Speaking as a representative for all of the media, how many times did you stand?
It was 10 times for Westminster and every time for the Senedd. So it'll be 6 times for the Senedd, and this will now be my 7th.
Wow.
Forgive me, how do you brush yourself off and keep going? Right? Because in comedy, there's something called Milliken's Law, right? Where you have a bad gig and you're allowed to wallow in it until 10 a.m. the next day, and then you just got to pick yourself up.
Never wallow. Life's too short to wallow. My father was a boxer, and you may have seen the clip I did on Facebook about him fighting in Kentish Hall Town when he was knocked down in every single round, and he still got up and carried on fighting.
Did he win the fight?
That's me. He didn't win the fight, no. I think he went down 3 times in the 4th round. And that was just against my mother. So, it was actually, it's his determination as well. I just wish I'd possessed his patience, because he was the most patient man I know. I am not a patient man, but I am a persistent man, and I will never give up. If you have a cause you believe in, then you have to passionately believe in it, and that's what I do.
It feels like Plaid almost need a Caerphilly Mark II, on a national level, right? That's what
I'll go with that. Yeah,
that seems to be what the where your opposition is. This is what that Plaid are trying to say, isn't it? Plaid versus reform. Choose Plaid. That's what you guys are going for.
And it's happening. I've done a mini tour of Wales. I'm on my 8th constituency next week when I go to Pwllheli. Nothing to do with Butlins on this red coat. But I go to Pwllheli, but I have been to Mold, Ruthin, Swansea, Neath, all of the Cardiffs, Merthyr, Pontypridd, Cynon Valley, and it's happening. What was happening in Caerphilly is happening in... if I can go to Mold Market, a fabulous market, by the way, I go to Mold Market and people can come up and recognise Lindsey Whittle, and I didn't have the red jacket on, I promise, then something is happening across the whole of Wales.
Are Plaid getting you to go on tour? Because
it's something I chose. It's something I chose to do. I chose to do it.
So why are you going? Because is it not more helpful for you to be where you're standing?
Well, I'm doing quite a lot there as well, so I haven't forgotten Caerphilly, and of course we're going into Blaenau Gwent as well, where in Caerphilly everybody knows the name Lindsey Whittle, but perhaps not so much in Blaenau Gwent and Rhymney, but we're getting equally positive responses there, and it's really exciting, People are looking for something positive. They think they're fed up of the big 2 parties battling it out, and here we are. They've got 2 new parties battling it out now, and you pay your penny, you take your choice, And most people tend to be on the left in Wales, and that's us, and that's what you get.
Is there any worry for you that, in terms of, you're not going to have any more money to do this? How are you going to meaningfully make a difference beyond just simply saying, we're just going to run things better? Is there anything that you can point to and say, this is what Plaid are going to be doing in a meaningful way, which will be different than what has gone before?
The stock answers, but they always tell you to say, well, that's a very good question. I'm glad you asked me that.
You don't need to say that.
But it's true. But look, it's going to be tough. It's not going to be easy. And anyone thinks this is going to be easy. If any politician thinks this is going to be easy, then leave now, because it's going to be tough. In fact, what I would say that sometimes the last thing you want is to take control now. But if you believe in the cause, you'll say, get me on that wagon, give me the reins, and I'll direct it. Now, whether we get more money, we will get more money. But the more employment we can create, in a new Wales, the more income we can get from taxation. The more we can go out into the world and get Wales recognised with our new National Development Agency, or whatever you want to call it, then we can start attracting investment. Yes, I believe in independence of Wales. People want to avoid that question. I don't. I passionately believe in independence of Wales, but we're not ready for it yet. We're not ready for it yet. This economy of our country has to be a lot stronger, and we have to believe in ourselves. And I think it was Gunther Evans in 1970 said, Wales has been kicked around like an old tin can. Well, we have, but now is the time to kick back. Yes, we've lost our coal, and yes, we're losing our steel and our most of our industries. But at the end of the day, we have much more to offer. There's new innovative ideas out there, and we can do it. We can create a new Wales. And if you don't have this enthusiasm, again, leave the building.
Well, I'm not doubting the enthusiasm.
Yeah,
if that's one thing I definitely see, it's the enthusiasm. What I am doubting, you say we will get more money. The Wales Governance Centre suggests that Wales could be seeing a real terms cut in 2028 based on UK government projected spendings. When you say we'll be getting more money, do you mean that you'll be getting concessions from the UK government to get more money?
It's not just about concessions from UK government, although UK government has better not forget the history of Wales, where we created Britain. We created Britain when our coal powered the world, and when our slate roofed the world. We created Britain. So it's about time some of that cake came back to us now, and we are fighting not just for our future, for our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. We are fighting for our parents, our grandparents, and our great-grandparents for justice, for what they suffered. Because we've been a poor country for literally the last 100 years, and the wealth has always gone out of Wales. Well, it's about time we had our fair share of wealth back into Wales, and we will create that wealth as well. You can't just expect them to hand it to us on a plate. We will go out there and we will encourage industrialists from across the world, international industrialists from across the world, to invest in our country. If you don't believe in investing in our country by inviting other people, then quite frankly, there's something wrong with you. And that's what politics should be about, is encouraging people to build a new Wales, build it with us.
For those members of the public who share that dream, but don't feel it, they can't see how that would happen tangibly, they can't imagine it. They might be one of the most deprived areas of Europe, they can't imagine more employment. How are you going to convince them that is actually a possibility in the Plaid Cymru?
Well, the only way is to give us the reins and watch what we can do. Watch this space and see what we can do. You've heard my enthusiasm. I'm of the older generation. Believe you me, there's a whole talent out there of the younger generation. If you could see the team that's behind the Senedd members and all the new Senedd members that we have lined up, and there is a lot of talent there, then trust me, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting. It's a little bit like the Welsh rugby team, We're rebuilding and we're getting there, and that's what we're doing.
One victory.
One victory. But it's a start, isn't it? It's a start, and we can do it. We really can.
What does the next 6 weeks look like for you? Sort of this enthusiasm on
Pretty
every
hectic,
door.
But I'm used.
On tour of it.
I'm the tour bus. Yeah, it's marvelous. It's marvelous.
Share.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I can't. Did I get that from the Who? I can't remember now. But it's a great bus. Honestly, come with us. Come on the journey, and you'll see it. It's electric. I cannot go anywhere. It's scary. And
Harry Styles of Wales, you get no peace. The public are just falling over you.
Well, I won't go that far, but when you've got bouncers on doors asking for selfies, then that's encouraging.
I'm conscious we need to let you go.
Okay.
So when's next on the tour?
Pwllheli is next.
Pwllheli,
hence, I did say, remember, the red coat and buttons.
Weren't you listening, Mel?
I'm so sorry. No, you are right. Safe journey to Bon Voyage.
That's okay, I'll bring a stick of rock back.
Thank you so much.
Lindsey Whittle.
Have a good day.
Bye now. Ta-da.
Ta-ra.
The Plaid Cymru members bouncing around the Senedd post-polling continues. We are now joined by South Wales West Senedd member, Senedd Williams. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, pleasure. Nice to be here.
Good day, fun 24 hours.
Yes, I mean, obviously it's good news for us. It's good to be in the lead, obviously, when you're heading towards an election. But obviously it's still all to play for, and we are out there fighting for every single vote. I know every single politician you've probably spoken to today will say exactly the same thing. But, you know...
You imagine if they weren't?
Yeah, I know.
But we're not fighting anymore, actually.
But it is, obviously, it does give you hope, and I think hope is very much needed in this election, that we could, it looks that we increasingly realistic that we could form the next government and also govern perhaps alone or definitely with cooperation of a progressive majority. So
Any
for
parties
me,
in
that
mind?
gives me hope.
Any parties in mind?
Well, I know who, you know who we're not going to work with. Looks like there would be a broader coalition of the willing on the left. That gives me hope. But obviously, for us, the great news is that if this becomes a reality, if the polls are supported by what happens on election day, then we will be able to lead that government and possibly, as I said, even govern alone, which obviously would be our preference.
Are you going to get the voters out? Are you going to get... Because, we don't have a great track record in Wales of people actually going to the polling booth on the day. A lot of that poll results actually depends on people going out, new voters for yourselves. Are you going to get them out?
I think that's absolutely right. I think what has changed and what we're picking up on the door in this election is that there's a jeopardy. There's a chance, there's a reason to get out and vote like there's never been before, because any politician that isn't in the Labour Party, certainly in my neck of the woods, would tell you, that you knock the door and people say, well, what's the point? Because Labour are going to get in. That has been, so why would you therefore, if you didn't feel very strongly in favour of one of the other parties, why would you bother? And I think there's been that kind of malaise and and it's come with really the fact that we've had the same people in power for 27 years. So, but I do think, for me, I'm really passionate about trying to get young people to vote. Since I've been here, I've been trying to campaign on better political education. I've been out to speak.
You've got a document in front of you. What's in your document?
Well, this is a brand new report. It's a Welsh Government report.
It's fresh.
March 2026.
There we
Hot off
go.
the press.
It's still hot.
It's still hot. And it's really important. I mean, it's got a very sort of worthy title, Innovating Democracy Advisory Group.
No, I don't know what any of that means. I don't know what any of that means.
Basically,
The IDAG. It's the IDAG.
Sorry.
Come on.
What am I like?
it's basically reiterates really. It's research that reiterates a lot of the calls I've been making over the past 5 years about saying why people need to understand devolution. They need to understand all the politics, the decisions that absolutely influence their lives and opportunities. And especially amongst young people, you were talking about turnout. We've seen turnout historically been lower amongst younger people. And of course, we had voter 16 at the last election. COVID, to a degree, kind of disrupted a lot of the plans that were out there to try and make sure that young people understood what that meant and to energise them. But I think we still haven't done that work properly, and that does worry me because young people, I hate it when people say that young people are interested in politics. They absolutely are, but I don't think they're empowered sufficiently to understand how they can take part in democracy and what, especially now in this age of disinformation, how they get to properly understand how they can do that in a way that, makes sure that their voices are heard. So
what does that look like then? Is that in schools? Is that sort of absolutely smashing it on the socials? Like what does that look like?
Well, this report looks at it throughout society. I've been specifically campaigning on schools because that's where we've got a captive audience. That's where we say education is for equipping our young people. Well, no, they can't get away. But also we say that's where we equip people with the skills we think they need to live productive, lives.
One thing that no one can accuse you of is not giving a shit. So you clearly care very much about stuff like poverty, social justice. And we know with poverty in Wales, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Poverty creates more poverty, doesn't it? It's both the symptom and the cause of so many of our issues. Plaid have spoken over the for a very long time about how atrocious Wales is, especially child poverty levels are. It's a really, really hard thing to fix. There is a strong chance you are not only going to have no more money, you might even have less money in real terms if you were to form the next Welsh Government. What really meaningful are you going to be able to do that is going to move the needle on that incredibly persistent child poverty figure? Because it's not just that figures staying the same, it's that the people within poverty, their level of poverty is getting deeper. Yeah. What are you going to do that's going to move the needle?
an awful lot of money gets spent on anti-poverty measures and support for people on low incomes. And I would say that we haven't had, and a Bevan Foundation report came out last week saying that there hasn't been a strategic enough approach. So we're spending money, perhaps we're not intervening early enough, and we're not doing things that can move the needle. So targets. We've been going on and on and on about targets, and I know it can sound kind of, technocratic and jargony to be talking about targets, but they absolutely focus the minds of ministers and of civil servants. And you've got to have the courage to fail as well. So you've got to aim towards something. And if you have a target, then you are absolutely going to be focused and make sure that all the resources you do have are focused towards changing that needle. And I think that is something that the Bevan Commission report was very strong on this last week, and talked about the fact that the current any measures that have happened have been very ad hoc, for instance, and have come as a result of having to work with opposition parties. For instance, free school meals, right? We know that this is making a big difference to child poverty. It was not a result of a strategic approach by the Welsh Government. It was the fact that they had to do a deal. Okay. So this is some of the, and a lot of the money that is being currently used, I think we need to take a really good look at to make sure it absolutely is effective outcomes, isn't it? Yeah. We often hear ministers listing about all the millions of pounds they're spending on different schemes, which I'm sure are all great schemes. But if that dial isn't shifting, we've got to ask, what can we do differently?
So I have sympathy with Plaid's argument that we won't know fully what we can do until we can get under the bonnet and see where money has been spent. But I'm not going to ask you to make a commitment on child poverty, but I am going to ask you to make a commitment for when you're going to make a commitment. So if we get to the autumn, Plaid are running the government, will you be able to commit to a time frame for instance, the elimination of child poverty? Will you be able to put forward this plan, this strategy? When will we know what you're aiming to do?
Well, we have said in the 100 Days plan that one of the first things we are going to do is review that child poverty strategy and set targets. So that is the 100-day plan.
End of August,
we're going to start work on that, right? Yeah. So obviously, before we start the work on it, I'm not going to be able to tell you exactly when we're going to be able to publish it. But be rest assured, we've only got 4 years. So without a strategy, how are we going to implement any policy that is going to make a difference?
In 6 months' time, 6 months' time, we'll have a strategy. We'll know where you're going in 6 months' time after the election. I
can't give you that time frame today, but I can certainly say it will be the first thing we're going to do. So it's going to be within the first year.
Okay. We like to finish with a bit of whimsy. Can you tell our listeners something about you that they probably don't know?
Right. Okay. So I reported on the Oscars when I was a journalist.
What?
That's cool.
So like red carpet, like red what are you wearing level?
I was wearing a gold trouser suit.
No, I meant, were you asking people what are you wearing?
No.
I wasn't saying what were you wearing, Senedd.
She's a good reporter.
She's incredible.
It was really important what I was wearing as well.
Yeah.
There's a dress code. There's a dress code.
The near of credibility goes if I just start asking politicians.
That's so funny. Would you ask a male politician that? You haven't asked any of the male guests that, Will. How dare you, Will?
John Griffiths was in shorts.
What were you wearing?
I just had a gold lame trouser suit.
Oh,
nice.
Yeah. So what were you doing? What happened?
Who's the most famous person you spoke to, though?
Well, we were all in kind of like a scrum.
Don't say Michael Sheen.
No, but who was there? So, Madonna was there. Right. Sean Connery was there. Right. And what was awful, though, this is the days, because I'm quite old, and when I was a journalist, there were no camera phones.
Sure.
So I haven't got any snaps to prove.
What year
Oscars?
I had a biro and I was doing shorthand. Yes.
Which Oscars was this? What year?
It was the year that Titanic won.
What are we talking? 98? 98, 99?
Yeah.
That went down well.
Yeah.
Oh. People died well.
So I would say that is probably something wouldn't know that their
I
MS
would not have known that about you.
has reported on the Oscars.
That's very cool. That's very, very cool.
Well, thank you so much.
Didn't go to any of the parties though.
You got to turn around your copy.
And Barry Norman, for those older listeners, will remember that Barry Norman, who was the film critic for BBC, stole my camera crew. Yeah.
Barry.
But you've moved on from it.
I'm not bitter.
She's healed. Yeah. Diolch yn fawr iawn, Senedd. Thank you.
Diolch.
Thank you.
We're now joined by our third Conservative of the day, Sam Kurtz, the Shadow Cabinet Secretary for Economy, Energy and the Welsh Language.
Rural Affairs, actually.
Oh.
I've been doing Rural Affairs for the last... Well, I've actually did that since I was first elected, dropped it for a period and then regained it after a reshuffle. So yeah.
Not the Welsh language.
Not the Welsh language.
You hate it.
No, I love the Welsh. Fi'n caru'r iaith Gymraeg, fi'n Gymro trwy o trwy, am brod iawn ohonof. But actually, going back into English, sorry. No, it just moved with a reshuffle and
with the Welsh Government briefs as well.
Yeah, and we tried to mirror it as best as we could, and with committee responsibilities as well. So I sit on the Economy, Trade and Rural Affairs Committee, so it makes quite a nice synergy, to use a real civil servant word, of bringing my policy portfolio in line with my committee.
So you are a farmer?
I'm a farmer's son. I never attest to being a farmer.
Farmers
work far harder than many people give them credit for. And we've got a beef farm at home that my parents run in North Pembrokeshire, just on the coast near Strumblehead Lighthouse. So we're actually closer to Rosslare Island than we are to Cardiff. And on a very clear day, you can see Wicklow Mountains over the Irish Sea. So it's a very beautiful spot. And going back into the Welsh, famous poet Dewi Emrys used to live on the farm before my parents and grandparents ran it. And he wrote a poem about Pwllderry, the area. And the line is, "A thinna'r meddyliau sy'n dwad I chi pan fo chi eistedd uwch ben Pwllderry." Those are the thoughts that come to you before you sit, as you sit above Pwllderry Bay. And it's a beautiful, tranquil spot that I highly recommend if you want to get away from things and escape, and no mobile phone signal, which is really nice when I'm on the farm.
Have you, as your family, signed up for the SFS?
So I've chatted to my dad about it quite a bit, actually. He's I'll give a plug to the Farmers Union of Wales. He's an FUW member. Other unions are available. But yeah, it's quite interesting because when we had the whole discussion around tree planting, we're a cliff-top farm where we quite often get salt burn on anything that grows above a foot. So trying to plant trees in that kind of environment is nigh on impossible. So that's where policy written on a paper and the reality of the topography and geography of Wales just come crashing at a head. So I used personal experience a lot to advocate for the industry in that sense. But farming's under a lot of stress at the moment. You think of the 3 Fs, feed, fuel and fertiliser, inflationary costs hitting those. About a third of fertiliser comes through the Strait of Hormuz. So prices are going to go up. Farming is going to need that stability payment that the SFS provides them. And I think that's where you will see a lot of farmers now signing up to the SFS, especially the dairy sector, where we've seen a crash in the price of milk as well.
I think there's like a really common mistake in terms of the understanding of like the farming vote in Wales. Because like I grew up on a farm. I'm from a farming community in Ceredigion. Very different to Pembrokeshire.
Yeah, massively.
Demographically. And I think there's a really big sweeping statement that's often made about farmers. Yeah. With that said, like, where do you think the farmers are going this time? Because there's been such a lack of, a breakdown of trust, I would say, with the Welsh Government. Where are they going to go?
So that's a really good question. And you could break it down in an area like Ceredigion. Farmers would traditionally be small C Conservative Plaid voters. And they identify as Welsh first, pro-language, Welsh language, pro-Welsh culture, and see themselves backing Plaid Cymru in that sense. Now, I think they're a little slightly disillusioned with Plaid's involvement in the cooperation agreement from some of the farmers I speak to, but Plaid will do very well in Ceredigion in the next election. Other farmers I know farmers who are sticking with us. I know farmers who've gone over to Reform. I know farmers who've going over to the Lib Dems. It's not fair, as you quite rightly put out, to just blanket agriculture or farming communities as a specific type of voter or with a specific kind of political leaning. So I think it's going to be interesting. And it's a really important sector in Wales, but if you look at the demographic spread, if you look at the population density, it actually makes up quite a small proportion of the vote, but it's integral to our economic future and our identity. So that's why it's, for me, not been about a political end game. It's what's best for the sector.
And what are the Welsh Conservatives hoping to get across to farmers in this election?
Well, if they vote for the Welsh Conservatives and in Ceredigion Pembroke they vote for me, then you're going to get someone who understands the industry. And I think we've had 26 years where there's been farmers in the Senedd, but for some reason, this last 5 years, it's possibly due to our leave of the European Union, domestic policy being made in Wales around agriculture for the first time, this apexing of debate around what agriculture looks like in terms of the climate argument, in terms of the economic argument, in terms of where we see it within our cultural identity. And I think if they vote Welsh Conservatives, they get people who understand that and that farming is a business and a lifestyle. It's not just a quaint nice to have in Wales and it looks good on a postcard. It's integral to the rural communities that, unfortunately, we're seeing population declining and rural schools shutting.
The polling that we saw yesterday is to be believed. There might not be that many Welsh Conservative votes coming your way. What's the feeling like amongst you at the moment?
So yesterday's poll I found really interesting because we've been doing a whole host of surveys, chatting to people. Firstly, I don't see the Green vote. I don't see that in Pembrokeshire Ceredigion. I might be wrong. And there was Cynog Davies obviously stood on a joint Green Plaid Cymru ticket way back when in Ceredigion. So there's a Green residual vote, but that's a very different Green Party to the Green
The polls
Party.
do seem to suggest that they're not really doing much in more rural areas, that it's urban areas.
But then they're
really.
still picking up a seat in Ceredigion Pembro and 3 Plaid seats. And I think that they're eating from the same plate kind of clientele. If you talk about the sort of independence element of it, if you're talking about some of the cultural elements and some of the economic arguments that these two parties are putting forward, they're quite similar. So I don't quite see that. But yeah, you're right. I mean, if Darren is the sole MS returned that was on one of the polls, I'll eat my hat. I'll come back on this podcast as possibly as
What sort of
an
hat
elected something digestible.
A little flat cap,
A little flat cap, not a big cowboy hat.
You mentioned about sort of, farmers who are going Plaid this time, going Reform, going Lib Dems. Do you feel like most people have made their switch and chosen? Do you think there's many votes to play for in the next 6 weeks?
Yeah, I think so. And when I say they've gone, I think a lot of them have just stayed in the pockets that they are, especially if you look at Mid Wales and the Lib Dem vote there. I think they will traditionally just stay Lib Dem. I think when it comes to the polling day, people are going to go into the booth and they're either going to be, I want change, and change will look at 2 ways. That's Reform and Plaid Cymru, even though I disagree with both of those for obvious reasons. Or they will think, better the devil you know, and go with something that they know. I think there are votes out there for play, definitely. And I think that shows in conversations on the doorstep that we're having. Oh, there's an election. Oh, there's a change to the boundaries. Oh, there's a change to the voting system. We haven't got, and I'm speaking as a former journalist and speaking to journalists and those in media, we don't have a media platform in Wales that really integrates these changes into households in the same way that a UK-centric, London-centric media does. People still predominantly read national newspapers over domestic Welsh newspapers. They tend to watch BBC News, ITV News, rather than the Welsh editions. So there's still a cohort of people who are just like shrugging shoulders, what's happening? But as the closer we get to polling day, that's going to be kind of fewer and fewer. So I think the polls will tighten because of that. More people will switch on to it.
Yeah, you were, was it Western Telegraph?
Pembrokeshire Herald, Western Telegraph.
Even if you're not eating your hat in May, if you do 5 times better than you expected and there's 5 or 6 of you in the Senedd, that'll be disappointing for a party which at the moment are the opposition, especially after Senedd expansion. What is not working at the moment?
I think, yeah, you're right as the party of the opposition, but because of that media landscape that I mentioned, we are perceived as having been in government because of what's happened in the UK Parliament. And that's been a difficult narrative to split. And I'm very clear that I'm a Welsh Conservative. I'm in the Welsh Parliament.
What's the difference between the Welsh Conservatives and the UK Conservatives?
So fundamentally, same party in terms of the party structure. Same party structure. We've got one party leader in Kemi Badenoch. Darren Miller is our leader in the Welsh Conservative group, and that is the system that's set up. But when it comes to policies, we have autonomy to develop policies for Wales and Wales specific, and I think that's a benefit. I like leaning into that because I'm a Welsh speaker. I'm not typically a Tory. I'm not a Tory boy. Some people may think of it. My grandfather and grandmother were immigrants. My grandfather was a German prisoner of war. My grandmother was an economic migrant post-Second World War. My parents in their own families grew up in abject poverty. Like, I don't come from a affluent Tory background. I'm different, and I want to lean into that difference of Welsh conservatism means. And I think that's where there's space, or there will always be space, for a centre-right party in Wales that has a unique Welsh identity.
Just to finish off, tell our listeners something about yourself that they wouldn't know. It doesn't have to be political.
Oh, gosh. I enjoy a lot of sports. I play in golf terribly. I used to compete in a lot of Eisteddfods when I was very young, so I was...
I can see the trauma in your eyes.
Thanks. Yeah, I dragged around a lot of mices when I was young, out of the national. I was in the National Eisteddfod in St David's back when it was there in the early 2000s in the Pasian de Plant. As
what
a
was
sports...
your competition? What was your go-to? You've given a Llefaru vibe.
Definitely
to me.
Llefaru, yeah. Not singing. I can assure you, not singing. Yes, reciting.
Yeah.
Welsh poetry, and that's what I used to do. But I'm a pretty normal guy, Will. Really, I've
the
loved.
least normal tone
Yeah,
ever.
I know.
We're just normal men. We're just
normal,
innocent.
man.
Just talking of kind of normal guys, one of the people. Are you missing James Evans?
Yeah, I was sad to see James go. James has been a close friend with very similar upbringings in terms of young farmers, council background and things like that. So, yeah, I was sad to see what transpired earlier this year.
Sam Kurtz, thank you so much. Good luck in the next 6 weeks.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for all you're doing.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Diolch.
Heledd fychan, croeso nôl i'r pod. Welcome back to the podcast. You joined us the first time we were in the Senedd.
I did indeed.
Yes, and a little bit has changed since then. What's the feel at the moment?
Well, obviously the polls have been changing, so no surprise if you've talked to any of my Plaid Cymru colleagues today that we feel that we're leaving the Senedd to go out to campaign in a good place. Obviously not taking anything for granted, but I'd much prefer to be in this position that some of the other parties going into that, well, next few weeks.
This is the end of your first term as well. Like, what kind of feeling is that?
Scary how quickly 5 years go.
Really?
And also exciting to think that there'll be hopefully another term, but shows that we as a team, so obviously I'm supported by a group of staff as well, we decided some of the things we wanted to achieve in 5 years, and it's really good where we've taken stock and seen progress on some things, but also thinking if we're in a position to be in government, that actually some of the things that have really frustrated me, that have been really slow, thinking, wow, we could be in a position to actually deliver on this in only a few weeks' time.
Are there any examples that you could give, things that frustrated you, things that you want to sort of change from day dot?
Yeah, well, one of the things I campaigned on was greater support for communities at risk of flooding. I've really campaigned for a flood forum for Wales to give that direct support to those at risk. We've got that commitment as a policy.
You live in Pontypridd.
Yeah, in Pontypridd. And, Labour have told me it's a good idea. They've been thinking about it for years now. And I'm like, we could actually deliver it. Been discussing with the Scottish Flood Forum what that would look like. So there's real things where, Labour have agreed with me, it's a good idea. They just haven't done it. And same with some of the culture things that I'm responsible for. I could actually get going rather than thinking, someone else, I need them to do it and keep raising it in the chamber. So I think that's the frustration where you even have the minister saying yes, but there's a block somewhere. So yeah, how we unblock those if we're in government is the key thing.
And your brief is it's vast.
It's
your
a chunky
brief,
one.
isn't it?
Remind us what it was. The whole brief.
So I'm responsible for culture, sport, Welsh language, and finance.
A broad brush.
Yeah.
Is there anything that, like, looking back at the start of your term, you came in fresh face, you think, I was naive about that? Is there anything that you think, you'll be pleased that you know it going in if you win again?
I'm pleased that I was a councillor before I was elected to the Senedd, because I think being part of scrutiny committees on a council level was really helpful, and really understanding the importance of good scrutiny. I think my frustration has been that people on so many different committees here, that it's been really obvious sometimes if some people have not read their papers coming into committee. And because
Is that something you see often?
Yeah. And I hope with an expanded Senedd that people will have read their papers, that there will be proper scrutiny, because I think on a council level, there were maybe 12 of us on a scrutiny committee, and you'd be on one committee and you'd know that in depth.
Yeah, sure.
But some of members from Labour, for instance, are maybe on 3 committees.
Yeah,
and when you have that pack of papers for just one meeting, I have huge amount of sympathy how you're supposed to stay on top of so many topics and be able to read everything. But it's frustrating when I'm there and I can see that they're just reading the questions rather than listening to what witnesses are saying and really drilling down.
I had such flashbacks to sort of group work in school then, where you're the one who does the work and you're like, why is this guy getting the same mark as me?
We're all getting the same.
Yeah, I remember that at school as well. And I'd be like, excuse me.
Yeah.
I've done the work.
Yeah. Look, I'll do it by myself, guys, actually.
Yeah.
I hope you take this in the respectful way it is meant.
Okay.
But you've got a very taking no shit attitude. That's your vibe, I would say.
Okay.
And do you think that comes from having had political experience before? Because in a lot of people, they probably wouldn't have that maybe in their first term. Do you know what I mean? They're finding their feet. They're trying to work out what kind of politician they want to be. Or is that just who you are, would you say?
I think it coincided with me turning 40.
And
there's something about entering that new decade of going, do you know what? I'm over this. So it's actually nothing to do with being elected, but just being more confident in who I am and actually calling out bullshit for what it is sometimes. And also being confident, I've got experience outside of politics. I can bring that to the table. And actually, if people want to talk me down, well, I'm not interested in that. So I loved turning 40. It was amazing.
Can't wait to be 40.
Yeah, I tell everyone in their 30s, just wait till you're 40. It's great fun.
So, in the spirit of not taking any bullshit, let's discuss Plaid Cymru's culture offer.
Yep,
So you worked previously at the National Museum of Wales.
I did.
And so you are pretty intimately aware of the challenges that culture face. I remember us talking at Plaid's conference just a couple of weeks ago, and you were pretty stark on how bad things have got. I mean, since devolution, culture and the arts in Wales have been absolutely starved of funds. And you've made it clear, and I agree with you, that there has been very little joined up thinking or harnessing the real power of the arts and culture in Wales. You said that in 4 years' time, if Plaid Cymru were to form the next government, that basically the 2 points I really took from it was we might not have any more money, but you would hope that culture would be harnessed through other budgets. So, for instance, the benefits of culture might come from health and in education. So, for instance, health boards working, for example, mental health programs, that wouldn't necessarily come from the culture budget. It might come from the health budget. And you also said that actually in 4 years' time, the change we would see in Wales would be that the situation has stabilised. But stabilisation isn't it's not the most sellable vision for the future. Do you think that you're being ambitious enough for culture in Wales?
Well, actually, after your newsletter was sent out, I had lots of emails from people in the cultural sector going, thank God someone's talking sense, because what the sector needs...
Me or you?
Me.
Oh.
What a neg, and I love it.
But also you did say that we were delivering what you've been calling for in your newsletter and what the sector's been calling for, which is actually showing that growth. It's not just about stabilisation, keeping us as we are. We have said investment will increase year on year, but also we'll be in a position where people aren't worrying, will I survive as an organisation? Will I be able to still be a creative? Will I be able to stay in this industry? So for people who are in that position now, who don't have any stability at all, I would think I can be in Wales, I can see the direction of travel from a government that wants to get us to at least the European levels of investment, and we're on track to reaching that. I would think people would take that over the uncertainty of, can I survive in this role? Is it viable? Are there going to be organisations culturally that exist? Because at the moment, that's not the case.
Can I just clarify on the reaching essentially the European average for spending per head on cultures? What you mean on that? That's above the UK average, isn't it? And Wales is quite far below the UK average. To reach European levels, you would have to be passing on more than a Barnett consequential of equivalent funding in England. At the moment, it's less. I mean, that is a really big amount of money to get to. And would you be looking, I think you might mention, would it be 8 years, would you say it would take to get to that kind of level of funding?
So what we've committed in the first 100 days is to really have that cultural strategy in place. And I would like to have that projection of how we increase the funding. I mentioned previously, and you just referenced now, that how it comes from other portfolios as well. So for instance, the Arts Council Wales currently £5 million goes into arts and health programmes and health boards. I don't know why that's not coming from NHS funding, so that 5 million could be released to do other cultural things from the Arts Council. Obviously, there'd be collaboration, but I'd like that embedded. So I think if you take on the round where that funding would come from, that we normalise the arts within the NHS, that we normalise the arts within education. It's just putting the Future Generations Act into action, something the government has failed to do, even though they're responsible for the Act. I think you're in a different place. Plus, obviously, putting arts, creativity, the creative industries at the heart of our economic strategy means that we'll be growing the economy as well. So it's not just looking at the budget as it is, but really looking, how do we harness this?
I am not for a second doubting your sincerity. You've been really clear over since you've had this brief about how much you think that the arts can not just be a nice to have, but kind of a vital arm of improving public services across Wales. I think the challenge is going to be, you have a real terms budget cut from the UK government in 2028. and there is suddenly an overspend in Culvar Health Board, and they are £150 million in the red, and you didn't see that coming. That is the time when when culture spending comes under pressure, isn't it? When it's that thing of, well, this is life and death. This is something that we have to move money into that. How aggressively are you going to have to fight to make sure that cultural spending is valued when the tough questions are being asked and budgets are having to be potentially shrunk?
I have to say, I find your comment saying it sounds sincere a bit patronising, because it's not just sincerity, they're real plans as well.
No, I'm not. No, I don't mean it in that way. What I'm saying is that I've spoke to some politicians who I haven't found to be sincere in what they're offering. And I'm not sitting here doubting your belief that the arts is really important. But what I am doubting is the ability around a cabinet table with real tight budgets that you're going to be able to make that case really aggressively when Mabinock Gwynfor is saying for health, oh my God, we've got a massive black hole and 20 nurses are going to go.
But do you know the difference is? I've already been having these conversations with my colleagues already. We've all signed up to our manifesto commitments and acknowledge that the arts have a key role to play. So the amount of conversations Mabon and I have had about arts and health, the conversations I've had with Kevin around education and health, Trín's commitment is there. If we're able to do it, it's that collective responsibility. And also, we acknowledge the arts spend at the moment is a tiny proportion of the Welsh budget, but the cuts are catastrophic. And then we're not getting the economic gain as well. So also with Luke Fletcher, the amount of conversations we've had about the power of culture, the arts and the creative industries. So I don't see them as nice to have and optional, and neither do my colleagues. If we're lucky enough to be in government, in cabinet, yes, there will be tough decisions, but I don't think you'll find that as Culture Minister, I'd be on the floor of this Senedd, as Dawn Bowden was as Culture Minister, saying, what about the NHS when someone is questioning her about cuts to culture? Because that's what happened when I led a debate around culture. I had Dawn Bowden, the Minister for Culture, going, what about the NHS? And I'm like, this is about the NHS.
So yeah, you're going out to bat for the arts, basically.
Yeah, and also not just say, please fund us so we can continue doing this. Please actually help us develop and grow, because we haven't had that kind of vision.
So on the For Wales, See Wales podcast, we are all about reaching out into the community, and we're joined today by two people who work in the arts.
We do. Thank you for the money. Thank you.
I think even no money, actually.
Yeah, I could actually do with some more.
How it will, after 4 years applied, how will people working in the arts, what difference will they see and feel in terms of how in their industry?
I would hope that you would feel valued, that you see in Wales that it's appreciated. Actually, when we see great people have to leave Wales or leave actually being creative at all and go into jobs that they're not passionate about, I think you'd see that Wales that you'd have a future in Wales, that you'd see opportunities and growth, and also that we'd be projecting internationally the wealth of things that we have going on here that are hidden, but not the managed decline. We need to reverse that, because people aren't going into kind of creative industries at the moment or being creative. We've got less people doing art and drama, music at school and GCSEs, and arts subjects being cut in universities and opportunities. No, it has to be part of our skills strategy.
Of course, to effect this change, you guys need to form the next government.
Yeah.
It's looking positive, but it's not looking guaranteed.
No.
What's the next 6 weeks looking like for you?
Well, knocking as many doors as possible, speaking to as many people as possible, going into schools, community groups, and actually having conversations, because it has to be listening to people. Our programme of government is based on lived experiences of people and also of organisations across Wales. I've been speaking to the cultural sector for years. I've not just sat in a room, wrote whatever's going to be in the manifesto and going, this is Heledd Bychan's plan. It's not that. And I think we need open dialogue as well and be challenged. I'll always welcome scrutiny as well. I think Plaid Cymru as a government would welcome scrutiny and dialogue so that we would know that our policies are having the most impact yet. But yeah, lots of door knocking and hopefully getting my steps in.
Yeah.
And enjoying not just sitting down for hours. That will be something I'm looking forward to.
And obviously the people of Wales need to know you've got credibility when it comes to the arts and culture. What would be your karaoke song?
Oh,
And it should be a Welsh one. Let's remember that.
I was going to say Back to Black by Amy Winehouse.
Oh, a good
Just
one. Yeah.
because it goes with my voice range quite well. Because how many times have we all started karaoke song going, I can't reach that top note?
Every time.
Every
Yeah.
time. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, fair. So you've gone, I know I can smash that one.
Yeah, well, I think I can when I try it. So
We'll be the judge. Yeah.
Helen Viking, thank you so much for giving up the time, and good luck for the next 6 weeks.
thank you very much, and thanks for being here. Diolch.
And we're now joined by Leslie Griffiths. Hello, Leslie.
Hello there.
How are you?
I'm okay. I'm feeling a little surreal, a
Yeah.
little weird,
Tell us why. What's
emotional.
happening
So
today?
this is my last day after 19 years.
Yeah.
So yes, it just feels a little bit weird.
Is it counting down the hours type of thing now? Because what are we now? 2 o'clock?
I can't do that.
Sure, yeah, of course.
Don't
Can't
break
do
her,
that.
obviously.
I'm doing one of the, the farewell statements. So
Yeah.
Are you actually feeling really emotional at the moment?
I feel quite emotional. We've just had this wonderful event that you probably saw for 25 years of the women. So as you can see, I'm number 37.
So you were the
Women,
37th
woman
woman
to be elected.
Wow.
So that was, seeing old colleagues and friends. That was quite emotional, and yeah, I do feel a bit emotional.
Obviously, it's a massive end of an era for you. 19 years, did you say?
19 years. I came here in 2007 the first time.
What's the decision behind closing that chapter?
My age.
You're like, do you know what? I've had enough.
I'm retiring. I'm retirement age, and I'm retiring.
Sure. Is there anything that you wish you could go back to yourself 19, 20 years ago and tell her about what the experience is going to be like here? Was there anything you were a bit naive about or you wish you'd known?
That's a really good question. When you first come in, it's quite overwhelming. So I came here in 2007, which of course was the One Wales coalition government. So it took a while for the government to be formed. And I remember sitting in Labour group one day, and I knew Roger Morgan very well. I'd campaigned for him to be leader back in 1999. And I remember saying to Roger, this just all feels really weird, And he said, it is weird. This is quite unusual, the way the government hadn't been, people vote on a Thursday and they expect a government on a Friday. But of course that didn't happen. It didn't happen for quite a few weeks. And I just remember that, I was new. And, nowadays when new MSs arrive, they have an induction course. I literally, there was an official from the Senedd Commission, or the Assembly Commission as it was then, gave me a cup of tea and a Welsh cake and a quick tour, and that was it.
Good luck.
That was it.
Yeah.
But now
The
it's
Welsh
so
cake.
much better now. But it was all very surreal. So I think I felt as if, you should be getting on top of this much quicker than you are. But
Yeah.
I think I probably would say to myself, take your time. There's plenty of time.
Yeah,
And-
you're going to be in here 19 years.
Well,
Chill out.
I don't think I would have told myself that. Gosh.
Another day longer.
Yeah, so.
I mean, you've had some thankless briefs over the years.
What have you covered?
So my first job was, I was Deputy Minister for Science, Innovation and Skills. Then I came back in 2011, I was re-elected, and I was the Health Minister. Then, then I did local government and Trefnydd, as now. And then I did children tackling poverty, and then I did housing and regeneration. And then I went to agriculture, and I was in agriculture for 8 years with various things, but environment sometimes, energy sometimes, always agriculture, fisheries, food and drink.
You had to go to the National Farmers Union conference every year and give a speech.
I did. You were there one year, Will, weren't you?
I'm sure it was very enjoyable. Thanks, Will.
It was
great.
I thought you fronted up really well. I think people didn't necessarily like what you were saying, but they respected that you were there saying it.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I've always felt that you need to front up. When I was health minister, it's some really tough decisions, and you've got to believe in your decisions. And I think that's the thing I learned very quickly, that if you believe in something, even before I was a minister, if you believe in something, you will drive it through and you'll be passionate about it and you can defend it. If you're a bit sort of, maybe this isn't the right thing. And, if you don't make mistakes, then you're not making the right decisions, I don't think. But I think with agriculture, things have to change. They still have to change. We've got a climate emergency. Things have to be done differently. So people don't like change. You realise that very suddenly. And I remember when I was health minister, there was a very small hospital that, not far from where I live and was brought up, that needed to close. And there was a brand new spanking hospital 10 miles down the road, but people get very attached to buildings and not services, so people don't like change.
We've talked quite a lot today about sort of the media landscape and how sort of people in this election might not necessarily know about, the boundary changes or, the situation and how responsible the Senedd are for that and the media landscape as well. I think the change element is a big thing for people, isn't it? And I think when you think of topics like 20 mile an hour, when you think of things of banning Coke refills in Nando's, that kind of stuff, do you think that media element of it is tricky as well? Because you can't bring people with you on some of these policies if the media landscape isn't there to kind of take people with you.
Yeah, it is very tricky. I mean, you mentioned the new electoral system and these super constituencies, 16, to go from 40 constituencies to 16 with 6 people representing one constituency, it's pretty mind-blowing, isn't it? You're going to have to get your head around it. And you're right, you've got radical policies. People need to understand them, don't they? And, with respect, I can't speak to every one of my constituents about it, but, I do have a role, and we all have roles to make sure we get that information out. The media obviously plays a huge part. Social media plays a massive part now in the way that when I first came here in 2007, we were only just getting emails really. When I was thinking about that, we did have emails, but I hadn't really used a computer very much before I was elected, because my job hadn't entailed that.
Could I ask you, obviously, as you say, it's changed a lot. And with the event that was going on at the Senedd today for women in politics, what would you say as someone who's held a lot of briefs, had a lot of kind of attention on the roles you've had, what would be your advice to be both for women who are thinking of going into politics and women who get in May? So women who are elected for the first time in May, what would your advice be to them?
So I think you've got to be resilient. You've got to have, I wouldn't say I've got a thick skin, but I think you do have to develop a thick skin. And I'd go back to what I was saying. If you believe in something, then, don't be swayed by outside noise. It's a privilege. It's just such an incredible job. If you think there's only 60 of us here in a country of 3 million people, what a privilege it is. And I remember the morning after my election. So we counted overnight in those days. We don't do that now. We count on Fridays, don't we? But I remember, I think I got my results about 5:25 in the morning. It was just surreal, and I'd lived on donuts. And so I was fueled on sugar and drove home probably about 8 o'clock in the morning after media, and suddenly the responsibility really hit me that I was now responsible for
got to do this.
Every person in Wrexham if they had an issue that they wanted their assembly member to look at.
You have advocated for Wrexham hard.
Oh yeah. I'm very lucky. It's just such a special place, and I don't think I would like to have represented somewhere that I didn't know. From there, lived there, grew up there, worked there, raised my daughters there. They went to school there. I went to school there. I've been very, very, very fortunate.
You say you're going into retirement. What's life going to look like after today?
After today, the main job is sorting out the constituency office, which I've been in for 19 years. So I would imagine it's a bit like, I haven't moved house for over 40 years. So I would imagine it's a bit like moving house. I'm quite sentimental, so I've got lots of things.
That's where that sock went.
Big job. Obviously, passing over casework, because we've got a lot of live cases, a lot of complex cases. You can't just say to the constituent, well, I'm sorry. I'm out. So they have to be handed over. So we need to wait for the election results to see who. So to be honest, the next sort of 6 weeks, 7 weeks, obviously campaigning, getting out on the doorstep, supporting the fabulous Labour candidates we've got in Flint Wrexham. So maybe a few days away as well.
So, okay, so not relaxing quite yet.
Not yet. There's still quite a bit to do. And of course, Wrexham are pushing to get in the playoffs to go up to the Premiership. So quite a lot of football coming up.
Leslie, thank you so much for taking time. You're about to go and give your final speech inside the chamber?
Questions first, and then at the end of the session, just before voting, there's a few of us who are leaving. I've been asked to do farewell speeches, so yeah.
Well, enjoy. Thank you. You've been really generous with your time on this podcast several times, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, hope you end up at Wembley.
Yes, that'd be great. That'd be great. And thanks very much. I'll be watching you all from afar.
Oh, diolch yn fawr iawn.
Diolch yn fawr.
Take care. Thank you. Guys, a day in the Senedd, in our Welsh Parliament. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, a chunky ep, but really worth doing, I think, because we heard from mostly a cross-section of, the parties. Really interesting, even the ones within the same party never said the same thing, which I actually think is really interesting.
Yeah, I respect that.
Yeah, it feels like a perfect day to come in on last day of school, doesn't it? Because I think people are either sort of bittersweet about leaving here. You know, some of the members who are leaving, very, very emotional about it. You know, like
you could see it in their eyes, couldn't you?
Like
Understandably.
a lot of time spent here, and you know, a lot of decisions made. And as Leslie said at the end, then you know, a privilege to be one of the few people who get to be an MS here.
Absolutely.
I suppose there'll be lots of newbies in a couple of weeks.
I think we just want to make two kind of caveats. If you're watching this on video several times, you will have seen me wave off while we were speaking to someone and stuff like that. And it's because we are literally on a thoroughfare. There's MS is walking through it now. Alan Davis is walking through right now. And
perfectly timed.
Quite a lot of the time we are like we're trying to catch our eye because we want them to come on. And the other thing we'll say is we've got representatives from we've got 3 Conservatives. We got Plaid. Obviously, Plaid are really happy to talk at the moment because things are going well, and we got some people from Labour too. We had an actual conversation with very senior people in Reform today, and said, "We're here. Do you want to come on?" They indicated thanks, but no thanks. They weren't rude. They just didn't want to come on. The offer was made, and I think that's a shame. But
they're holding out there's 6 weeks to go before the election.
There'll be time to speak to them after the election, I suppose, when they've got some seats.
Yes.
And then we can go and chat to them then.
Absolutely, let's hope.
But I love that we get to do this. I'm so glad I get to do something like this with my mates.
Also, just a note to say like how great it is that we have a parliament where this is possible.
Yeah.
There aren't many countries in the world where you could rock up with some mics and harass the representatives to come and sit on a podcast. You know, so it's great that we can be in the hub of it. You know, not to be too saccharine, but it is great that we can do that.
No, it's like an embodiment of democracy, isn't it? You know, to be here and a shout out to the Senedd staff for letting us do it and being so lovely as always.
The Senedd is members of the public. They can come in.
Yeah.
It's free to come and see where decisions are made. I think it's a beautiful building. You're right, Mel. We are very lucky to have it.
Absolutely. Well, we will dissect further what is being discussed. I mean, I need to go back and digest all of it on a future ep. But I really hope that our listeners and viewers enjoyed. I mean, so special that we get to have so many representatives on in one day, some of their last days.
Absolutely, you know? and also long-standing MSs, but also newbies like Lindsey Whittle, who's clearly been on the Haribo Snakes. Like
he's twin snake right up, isn't he?
Lindsey Whittle. I mean.
He was what we needed after lunch. Just for listeners, we had a bit of a carby lunch.
And like veggie lasagna.
Yeah, you know when you're there like, oh, I could really do with a nap. He was like the mid-afternoon can of Diet Coke. You know that?
Yeah.
That just gives me life. That's what he did.
Journalistically, you like when you speak to some people, you ask them a tough question, they go, well, that's actually not a fair question. With him, he was like, oh, come on, Will, like, cheer up. And I'm like, what?
What you got? Come on.
Yeah, my father boxed. He got punched 14,000 times.
So funny.
You know he boxed like this. I'm sorry for audio listeners. This is terrible, but you know the old
rules.
Yes, exactly. What a gem.
We'll be back next week. We will obviously Senedd will be in recess then, and the election.
We're in the endgame.
The election campaigning will be underway.
It will.
So as you say, endgame. A couple of weeks to go. But yeah, thank you for watching until the end of this absolute mammoth.
Daryl's got it. Where did?
Thank you, Daryl. Appreciate
you, Daryl.
I've been Robin Morgan.
I've been Mel Owen.
And Will Hayward.
Ta-da.